Mindset Michelle TV show. We're so super excited for you to be joining us for yet another incredible show with today's extra special guest, Claudia Neal-Shaw. Hello, Claudia. How are you going?
Hello, Michelle. I'm really well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on the show today. I'm really excited.
It's so fabulous having you here. And for those of you that haven't had the privilege of meeting the lovely Claudia, she's got an organisation called Candor Consulting, and she's the CEO of that, and they help people with marketing strategy. But she actually started her life back in the legal profession and I'm sure uses that wonderful background and experience to help women, and especially women entrepreneurs, in their businesses. But Claudia, would you like to share with people, how did you come to be doing what you're doing and be so passionate today about helping women?
Well, thanks so much for asking, Michelle, and I'm really excited to share a little bit of my journey. As you so beautifully mentioned, I'm an ex-lawyer, ex-corporate comms girl turned entrepreneur. And when I was leaving school, I knew that I was passionate about a whole range of different areas. I really wasn't sold on just choosing one journey. And so I chose to study both law and communications. And I pursued those journeys through criminal defense law for many years, and also in communications across PR, advertising, anything that required a message to be shared in order to speak to a very specific kind of customer. That's where I used to play. And so I spent most of my 20s really exploring these different industries, both in Australia and overseas, to really try and understand what it was I was so passionate about. And the things that I really love are that storytelling piece, that conversation and connection, and most importantly, being able to build really long-term, beautiful relationships with people across the business world. And so once I was admitted to the Supreme Court in New South Wales as a solicitor, about 6 months later, I made that really difficult decision to leave law and pursue communications and marketing. And so I continued that journey working for some incredible organizations across industry, and ended up opening my own marketing consulting business back in 2019. I went full time. And so it's been a really interesting and diverse journey. And that business, that marketing consulting business, has now evolved really into education and coaching, very specifically helping female entrepreneurs who come from those traditional industries, whether they're lawyers, accountants, in HR, consulting. And I teach them and give them the tools to be able to share their story in a very powerful way and ultimately build a business that is on their own terms.
Wow, and what an incredible and amazing journey. And thank you so eloquently for sharing it there. And I really heard about that communication component, even when you were studying the law, helping with criminal law, and then the PR and the advertising side of things, and that evolution, if you like. And it sounded quite a natural evolution the way you were explaining it, from there to completing that. And that's what I love to hear. You know, you completed it, you became a solicitor, you were admitted to the Supreme Court of New South Wales and all of that. So you kind of reached that version of Everest and ticked that off the bucket list, if you like.
Yes.
And then went, well, what did I learn? What do I learn from that journey? And you quite rightly so beautifully shared about how you learnt that it was communication that was your passion around there, but also recognising that your journey then to building your own business and starting out with your own company was something then that you could help other women and in particular transition from those roles, those corporate type of roles. With having walked and having had the privilege of walking within the legal profession and other professional areas with the PR and advertising and comms work, in that corporate world, and then being in the entrepreneur and especially female entrepreneur space, I guess you have an interesting insight then into and development for yourself as to what success now means to you. what your definition of it might be for you.
I think the question of what success looks like is so interesting, because I really think it evolves over every age and stage of your life. And the version of success that I had in my early 20s, you know, it was probably more of that superficial stuff. It was around, you know, perhaps the amount of money that I wanted to make, the places that I wanted to work, the people that I wanted to meet. And now, having had that experience and building my own business, success really comes down to how I wake up feeling every day, and truly having that zest and that energy for life, and to go out there and do meaningful work with people who mean something to me. And I think that can take a long time to get to that version of success where you base it more in the feeling rather than perhaps some of those tangible milestones. But I often find the milestones are actually not what gives you longevity. What gives you longevity is being able to tap into, how do I feel when I walk into rooms with these kind of people? How do I feel when I sit down at my desk and I do this kind of work? So every day that I'm waking up feeling happy and energized, healthy and excited to do the work that I'm doing, that's when I feel the most amount of success in my business, but also in my life. It allows me to be a better partner, a better sister, a better daughter, a better friend. They really translate from the professional to the personal as well.
I agree. I think that I asked this question, and it is interesting because it comes back to different stages of life, and understandably so when you're a bit younger, and money is a much higher priority and value in terms of getting started on life, and also paying off all the fees if you've been studying. And then as you kind of settle, it's very much Maslow's hierarchy. As you kind of accumulate and get settled into those base level needs, it becomes more and more, and I love the word you used about, you know, that zest and enjoyment of life. So waking up in the morning and what's the feeling of what you're doing. And you explained it so beautifully as well around the difference between the tangible goal and the actual feeling about what you're doing. And so whether that's within business or in personal life or across both, what is the feeling about what you're experiencing, and how does that then, and you shared it so well as well, how does that feeling then translate into who you show up as for your relationships with your sister, with your clients, with whoever? And that's where that love and that zest for your life come back to. Really beautifully put. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you.
So I'm interested then, obviously you didn't wake up one day and go, oh, okay, I've got all of these answers and I'm really clear about success to me, and etc. What do you think are some suggestions or tips that you can share about your journey and your experiences with people about how they can also start to create the successful mindset themselves?
I think, Michele, it's really interesting. I love this exercise, and I often use it with friends, clients, and it really contributes to, I think, that consistency of mindset. And I always say to people, what are the activities and the things you are doing when you are the most confident version of yourself? So it might be something along the lines of, when I'm feeling my most confident, it means that I do wake up feeling energized every day. It means that I am exercising. It means that I'm spending time, you know, not working from home. I'm spending time around people. I'm working on a hobby that I really like. I'm doing work that's really meaningful. And then we kind of go to the other side of the page and we say, okay, well, what are the activities that I'm doing when I'm not the most confident version of myself? Might be spending a lot of time scrolling social media, drinking 58 coffees and, you know, not eating enough protein or breakfast or whatever you need. It's all of those activities that we tend to rely on when we are tired, stressed, busy, and overworked. And I think sometimes having those comparisons of, so if I am that most confident version of myself, these are all the things that I want to prioritize, and actually having clarity around the stuff that makes us feel really good, because the more we can do to make ourselves feel good, the better that we can show up in our professional world. And it allows us to do things like reach out to people for opportunities. I've got this great saying that my parents always said to me, which was, if you do not ask, you do not get. And the worst answer that you can get from someone is they say, no, sorry, I can't give you that opportunity, or sorry, no, I don't want to take you for a coffee or meet you. I think sometimes we get inside our own heads and stuck behind the fear of this person's going to judge me if I ask them for something, or this person's going to say no. But Michele, I truly believe that so many opportunities are missed simply because we are too scared to ask for them. And so being able to fuel ourselves up with those things that really make us feel amazing, and then putting ourselves out there and asking for the opportunities, going and creating them ourselves rather than just waiting for them to fall in our lap, I truly believe are the foundations for continually building that successful mindset. Because the more we do something, the more we prove to ourselves and we give ourselves evidence that we can actually go and do it again, that it's not actually something that is so foreign to us that we're incapable of achieving it. It's just about waking up every day and saying, you know what, today I'm going to go and give it a crack and I'm going to see what happens.
I really feel the passion and clarity that you so beautifully bring to this suggestion that you have. And I'm reminded actually of, in my mind, I'm very visual. So I was reminded of, when you learn to drive a car, you don't necessarily get it right straight away. And you kind of fail a lot of the times, when you're doing reverse parking or parking on a hill or whatever, you fail. And if people gave up learning how to drive a car, they'd never learn how to drive a car, but they don't. They really are passionate about learning how to drive a car. And I think the wonderful examples you were talking about there, it's similar. Reaching out and asking people for help, or asking them to come on the TV show, or whatever it might be. It's about developing that beautiful point you made about the consistency of mindset. So to keep going, keep going, keep going. The other interesting part about what you were beautifully sharing that I was reminded of is that in marketing, one of the things, of course, is that you ask 10 people and perhaps 2 or 3, you expect 2 or 3 to answer. So you actually don't expect the 10 people to respond. And I think that that's that consistency of mindset as well. So you're looking for the positives in the glass half full, as opposed to focusing on, well, why did 7 not respond, or not this or not that to your request? And it can, at 99.99% of the time, I can guarantee it's absolutely nothing to do with you. It's to do with what's going on in their lives, their business, etc. But people don't necessarily, if you start off without the confidence and then you don't get the 10 out of 10, that can also knock your confidence. And I think many, quite famous people and quite gung-ho, go-get kind of coaches and people in this space, they say go get the 10 out of 10 and don't stop until you get them, instead of what I love about what you're sharing, which so beautifully, which is building up those muscles for success, those habits, that consistency of success. So if you ask or approach the 10 like we're talking about, and you have an expectation of 2 to 3, and you get 4, then you've actually been more successful than you started off with in terms of expectation. But if your expectation, and unfortunately, like I said, many things say get the 10 out of 10, if your expectation's 10 out of 10, then you're going to keep failing. And that mental process then kind of builds the habit of not succeeding and not being confident. So I think, having that clarity that you're talking about, those conversations in your head, and building those muscles is a really, really fabulous example that you were sharing. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting, Michele. In business and in life, I truly believe that the person who can be the most flexible wins. And if we chose to give up after every single time someone said no or something didn't work out in the way that we wanted it to, we have a very short shelf life on business and on life, really. Being able to pick ourselves up and keep going. And I truly believe that's all that confidence is. Confidence is not about having an absence of doubt or anxiety or nerves. It's about saying, despite that, I'm willing to put myself out there and I'm willing to keep giving it a go, to build my own character, build my own business, and ultimately leave a legacy and an impact behind that you can feel really proud of.
And I'm keen to find out from yourself, because I was kind of half joking, but not joking, about having reached the top of Everest and become a solicitor. But obviously, when moving then from a highly lucrative, great career path, legal career that was laying in front of you at that point, and going, oh, okay, I'm now going to move away from this and go and do my communication side and set up my own business. What do you think it was for you in terms of what we're talking about, those, that consistency of, oh, okay, I reached out to 5 people to become clients, and one of them I got a coffee with. So you didn't kind of collapse in a heap and go, it's never going to work. Or you may have had days where you did that, but you kept picking yourself up again and continuing on. What do you think it was that helped you to normalize, recognize in an area where you, as an entrepreneur, it's such a different land to corporate world, you were learning about, there's different rules of the game and different levels of expectation. What do you think helped you to keep getting up again and adjusting, like you're saying, that flexibility around, well, in corporate life, I used to expect, say, 5 out of 10 to respond to me. But in entrepreneur life, 1 or 2 responses is actually kicking, an Olympic gold medal sort of thing. So how did you make that adjustment?
Michele, I think in any new journey, you embrace the beautiful existence of naivety. You only know what you know. And so, of course, you are coming from corporate experience or previously employed experience. But what was so amazing about that experience is it was so diverse. It was both domestic and international. It was across different industries, working with different kinds of people. And so that in itself allowed me to normalize the sheer diversity of how you do business. And so I felt like when I went out on my own, I really picked and chose elements that I really liked of what I previously saw people do in their businesses or in corporate. And I had a really clear understanding of what I didn't want to do. And I think that can sometimes be a really lovely comparison in guiding your path into setting an expectation for yourself. The biggest rule that I live by is that when you meet an incredible woman in business, it is your duty to introduce her to another incredible woman in business. And I have really followed this rule from my early university days and have been able to build some incredible connections all over the world and a wonderful network of both women and men who have actively supported me in each iteration of my journey and me for them. And I think being able to connect with people and show up in the spirit of how can I support you rather than what can I take from you? What benefit can I get out of this interaction? And I think if we all show up in that spirit of collaboration, of wanting to support and give, that law of reciprocity pays dividends. It might not be specifically from that person, but it comes around to you in its own way. And so starting your own business and getting that metric of how many clients do I want in the door? What kind of connections do I want to make? I still follow that same rule. Show up to give, and in turn, you will receive. Absolutely.
What a beautiful, beautiful philosophy to share, and such a wonderful and eloquent way of sharing it as well. show up to give, and that law of reciprocity are so important. And I think when transitioning, I could hear it as well when transitioning, that curiosity and also that crafting. You didn't use that word, but what I was hearing when you talked about selecting the bits that you liked from the corporate world, from other businesses that you'd seen. So crafting and going back to what makes you feel confident. So identifying and having clarity around that and filling your life and filling your world with more of that. I really love that, and how it linked so nicely into your understanding from early on. I talk in my book about this idea around the giving receiving, and I talk about a tree, how it grows, an apple tree, how it grows apples. So it's giving to the apple, and then when the apple falls, it's kind of that cycle beginning again. And I think when you're meeting people and introducing and creating those networks, it creates a bigger network, like you're sharing about your business and about your life, not just your business, and networks. And I can share that, yes, it leads to connections all over the world, especially since COVID, when everything's online now. So I really love those different points you were sharing about. It was a new journey you were heading on. So that curiosity, the clarity that you've mentioned a few times around, you were deliberately crafting what you wanted to be doing and how you wanted to be doing it in your business. And then the other element around, as you were meeting people, building and looking at how you could support them, and through supporting them, building your network as well. All really gemstones on this fabulous Mount Everest we seem to have climbed.
Very shiny Mount Everest.
Well, some of the coaches I've worked with have actually talked about that people's experience, it's like this mountain of gold, your background, your experience. And I think you so beautifully are sharing your suggestions today in ways that people can see, oh, these are like diamonds around the peak of this fabulous Mount Everest. If there was one or two elements of everything we've spoken today about, what do you feel most passionate about sharing with people? Sometimes it can come across that, oh yeah, just do this or just do that, or be confident or be whatever, just go create your business, etc. And I know not everybody's always confident, or they're having a bad day. So what do you think are the things that really, make it so that you feel full of your passion and your purpose?
I think the first thing, Michele, is really about honoring and nurturing the things that really light you up as a person, whether it's a hobby, whether it is a passion that you haven't been involved with for a few years. I think the relationship that we have with ourselves and how happy and confident we feel about ourselves translates into the work that we do, whether that's within an organization, whether that is running your own business. So the more that you can create beautiful time, space, and energy for the things that you really love, that's the stuff that really gasses us up. It really allows us to step into that truest version of ourselves. So really prioritizing the stuff that makes you feel great. And then the second thing that I would really encourage people to do is, don't be afraid to reach out to someone and ask them to take them for a coffee and to have a conversation about their story. I think sometimes we can feel afraid or nervous about asking someone, whether it's someone we really admire or it's, an old colleague or a mentor, but you'd really be surprised on how much people want to help, support, and guide you based on their story and experience. And sometimes, absolutely, people don't have time, right? Even saying to someone, would it be okay if we caught up for 20 minutes on a lovely Zoom call just like this, and we could reconnect and I could learn a little bit more about your story? Because the incredible people that agreed to give me the time of day, that agreed to give me the experience, were absolutely catalysts in the journey that I then went on. And it was only because I was able to work up the courage to say, hey, is it okay if I take you for a 20-minute coffee and I could just learn a little bit more about you and your story, and share some of your story as well, because people are really interested and they want to reciprocate the incredible advice that they've been given in their life. And so I find myself now receiving those beautiful requests from incredible young women who are on their career journey saying, Claudia, can I catch up for a coffee with you and learn more about your journey? Absolutely. Let me give back to you what I've then received.
And that's such a wonderful, again, a beautiful way of sharing, you know, that giving and receiving. And I think that cycle that you shared so beautifully started for you in university, I can hear, will continue on throughout this current phase of what you're doing with your own business, but will continue on as well. And I think that you have shared what is interesting. As people age, they tend to become more aware about leaving legacies. And you're far too young to be talking about that yet. But that's where that next stage and that next focus becomes, well, okay, I've been mentoring and supporting people for this period of time, but what does that look like when, you know, when I'm not here in another 100 years or so? Claudia, if people were wanting to get hold of you, what's the best way to reach out and connect?
The best way to connect with me is either on LinkedIn, Claudia Neal-Shaw, on my Instagram, also Claudia Neal-Shaw. I love sharing really real behind the scenes of what it looks like to run a business and my journey as an entrepreneur. So I really encourage anyone watching, listening to reach out. I'd love to hear your story and how I might be able to share any helpful advice. But Michele, this has just been a beautiful conversation. I so appreciate you for inviting me on Michele TV.
Thank you. And one of my favourite questions is this last one around, if you were to give your younger self, the younger Claudia, what advice might that be?
I think it's always a reassurance that everything is happening in the way that it needs to be. You don't need to force anything. You don't need to be upset that things aren't moving as quickly as you might like them. You are absolutely on the right path. And that trust and intuition is definitely something that guides me to this day. So I definitely want younger Claudia and any other incredible young women on their career journey to know that too.
That's one absolutely wonderful advice there, Claudia. And it's been such an absolute honour having you on the show today. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Michele. It's been an absolute delight. Really appreciate it.
Fabulous. And to all the people watching, thank you again for sharing all of your fabulous feedback and insights and feedback about the fabulous guests like Claudia that we have on the show today. But for now, from my heart to your heart, be great, be fabulous, and be you.